It's my absolute privilege to introduce these three panelists that we're so lucky to have talk to us today. I could literally fill the entire hour sharing all of their accomplishments, but you'd rather hear from them. So Logunova-Parker is the founder and CEO of Evenness, creators of immersive spaces for events, team collaboration, and learning. Eve is recognized as one of the top 100 women of the future operating in the Web3 Metaverse domain, one of the top 100 women to know in America, and a top 10 AI leader to follow from Amsterdam. She's also a founding partner at Web3 Circle of Trust, and she spearheaded the successful launch of WAI Accelerate, the first ethical leadership and business acceleration program for women founders in AI, machine learning, and data science. Dr. Jacquelyn Morie is an artist, scientist, educator, and true pioneer working in the fields of VR, immersive worlds, games, and social networks for over 2 decades. She's established herself as one of the foremost researchers advancing these mediums, conceptualizing and designing new environments and platforms for social use and welfare. Dr. Morie received the Accenture VR Lifetime Achievement Award from the Academy of International Extended Reality for her contributions to VR. She's also created a virtual world for future astronauts on missions to Mars for NASA. Dr. Alessandra Sala is the Senior Director of AI and Data Science at Shutterstock. She's the co-chair of UNESCO's Women for Ethical AI and the Global President of Women in AI. Formerly, Alessandra was head of analytics research at Nokia Bell Labs, where she made noteworthy contributions to the Nokia AI Ethics Advisory Board. Alessandra was awarded the ITP Innovator of the Year Award in 2017, among other prestigious awards, and was the Irish Ambassador of Women in AI. I can't think of more qualified people to lead us in today's topic. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to you, Irene.
Thanks, Shelley. Welcome, everyone. As Shelley has just demonstrated, we have some pretty brainy panelists with us today. Big thank you for being here. Before we kick off, I just kind of wanted to set the scene. We're here to talk about how to make smart, ethical investments in AI. I've been spending quite a lot of time thinking about AI, hopefully more than it spends thinking about me, which is the point. This is the first tool in history that can make decisions by itself. It brings enormous promise as well as risks. So ChatGPT embodies more knowledge than any human has ever known. It can converse, from my looking into all of this, it can converse about mineral extraction in Papua New Guinea, or about a Taiwanese semiconductor firm that finds itself in geopolitical crosshairs. ChatGPT, GPT-4, the artificial neural network which powers ChatGPT, has aced exams that serve as kind of gateways for people to enter careers in law and medicine in America. It can create songs, poems, essays. It can be a force for enormous good. Actually, only this morning, the headline I read in the FT was, "A paraplegic patient is able to walk again using only his thoughts thanks to AI technology." Governments are mulling new regulations. Prominent voices are calling for a pause on development. Investors are discussing where to place their money in this incipient industry because generative AI could provide a new pipeline of IPOs and the foundation for the next generation of mega cap tech firms. As investors, we all have a responsibility in influencing the technology's positive direction, and to kind of calibrate how worried or how excited we should be about this technology. It helps first to kind of look at it from a high level and understand where it came from, how it works, and what the limits are to its growth. So to kick things off, Dr. Alessandra, you're a senior director of AI at Shutterstock. Could you begin by just telling us a little bit about what is AI and how are you utilizing it in your current work?
Thank you very much, Irene, for having me among those other panelists. Let's set the scene around AI and the expectation that we have upon this technology. It's a technology that has been in the making in the research community and among technicians and brilliant mind as Dr. Jackie for many, many years now. We have seen up and down around AI, and most recently, a lot of hype around this technology for three simple reasons. A lot of data are available to those models. Compute has become cheaper and storage has become cheaper. And therefore, this technology has become more accessible to more players. It stands upon a long journey of research. We in Europe tend to refer to this technology as it was defined by the high-level expert team that was a collection of experts in AI that has defined trustworthy recommendation around this technology, starting from the definition. Really, a technology that is able to learn intelligent behavior that can be software only or embedded in hardware. And therefore, by this ability to learn from example, is show intelligent ability to take decision. We see AI embedded in every aspect of our life, the way we shop, the way we bank, the way we search information, the way we navigate. And in the next few years, we will see AI continuing to enter our life and our decision-making processes in more and more ways. And what we will discuss here today, I think, is how do we want this new technology that will enter our life in very intimate way to be apparent to us, to be supporting our decision-making in very explicit and visible way. So not to trick human towards specific path. So at Shutterstock, we have been investing in this technology for quite a few years. And we have taken an ethical approach, redesigning some of the principles that were necessary to actually play ethically in this space. And we can articulate more later after we hear from the other panelists as well, the way user experience our AI. I like to use an example. We have a catalog of 400 million users. Think about if you spend 1 second on every single image, it will take 11.5 years of your time. And when you do a search, you want that image or that video that you're looking for in nanosecond, immediately appearing to you. You have not 11 years to see everything, to discover what you want. Therefore, we use AI to support people to actually quickly get to the content that they're looking for.
Thank you so much, Alessandra. Dr. Morie, Jackie, perhaps you can chime in here and talk about what you're currently focused on with all these worlds and how you're leveraging AI.
Certainly. Well, as a person who kind of studied AI in the dark ages, 30 years ago, and mostly, interestingly enough, in areas of art where we were looking at shape grammars and how you could analyze particular images because of the shape grammar that was the underlying knowledge base for that. My work has been mostly, though, in AI conversational agents over the last couple of decades, and creating very sophisticated ones that you can converse with, ask questions of. They have a knowledge base. Now, AI has certainly put us at an inflection point where that game is changing, where it's not the knowledge base that we put in for the AI characters, but now we can maximize or leverage all of that knowledge that's out there. So the applications are absolutely endless, I think, from conversational agents to another area that I'm looking at extensively is how specific knowledge bases for things like what we know about the sense of smell can influence how we put out new ways to include more senses into our immersive experiences and into our daily life experiences. The fact that we can take a really codified set of knowledge not the whole internet, not everything that's out there, because that's vast, but these very specific targeted areas of focus mean that we can do things like the medicine example that was just mentioned. So that's where I see a lot of advancement, where we're taking not only how ordinary people use it every day for searching or for finding out information more quickly, more safely, hopefully, but these real targeted things that can influence particular industries. One I'm working on is a medical one, where we're looking at data for tissue elasticity and all of the things that we need to know about that in order to make a better surgical simulator for micrographic surgery. So it's just opening up an amazing new world, I think.
That's super fascinating. Eve, can you please chime in, because I know you're doing, you're looking at how AI can be utilized in the metaverse, etc., and give us a little bit of an overview of what you're getting up to.
Absolutely, it will be my pleasure. Hello, everyone. So if you are interested in artificial intelligence, there are different ways to look at things. Some ways that were presented by Dr. Alessandra and Dr. Jacquelyn. It's about productivity, it's about efficiency, automation of processes. But you also have immersive environments. Metaverse comes as a virtual space where you can come as an avatar with your own digital identity and participate in discussions, learning events, various collaboration sessions, or simply showcase your technology and solutions. Now, AI in so-called metaverse space, so virtual worlds, virtual environments, is used for in different ways. You can look at enabling the whole environment to be seamlessly performing across various devices where you share data and where you render images. This kind of approach to being more accessible is what AI actually enables on the back end of technology. On the front end, you don't see it on the front end. You come as a user, but what you see may be AI assistants, non-performing characters standing there as avatars, talking to you in an interactive way, sharing their story or answering to your questions. And if you link GPT technology, whether it's 3, 3.5, 4, you can enable an open conversation. So in the future, you'll be also able to jump into internet via your assistant and conduct your research that usually takes years, maybe in a millisecond. You know, this is the advantage where you make the experience now in the virtual environment very interactive. You can also run smooth data analytics in real time. Real-time data analytics is a heavy process because you have to, measure a lot of data points. But with AI, it becomes more easy, that the word I would use, to bring the experience and understanding that experience to the next level. So I think Metaverse is a topic on its own and how AI is applied, but you would see a lot of new ways open up, and especially with stable diffusion technology and technology that is, people call it prompts, right? GPT, that enables you to create your spaces and design them with no code. This is a deal breaker for the future because people now can actually, without becoming programmers, get inspired to become programmers, but already be able to create their spaces and present themselves and their concepts and ideas. So for me, that is that blend of AI and metaverse and plus blockchain here and there is what drives the world forward, because we can finally bring people together, whether they are 1% of the rich and successful, or those who are just defining their path towards the future, and those who are not only sitting in New York's and Tokyo's big cities, but also living in the jungles and more like in villages and smaller locations where internet may be, our devices are not so advanced. So therefore, I will pass the microphone back because I can discuss it more. I think it's interesting.
Eve, so you're talking about, democratization here, right? And which leads me nicely onto sort of the next question, which is, AI to me, and obviously I know very minimal amounts, but is at a really embryonic right now. It's the beginning. And this new technology comes with a growing concern for ethics. So it's a field that's clouded by controversies over algorithmic bias, the erosion of privacy, the excessive concentration of corporate power. So what is, and maybe Alessandra, we can give the mic back to you, what is ethical AI? Or maybe I should say potential ethical considerations should we address with AI?
Very good, very good. So first of all, there has been a lot of discussion about responsible AI and ethical AI. I've been working with UNESCO around the recommendation of the ethics in AI. It's a formal document that is accessible. I can actually share the link in the chat so everyone can have a look at this document. It's not only a principle-based document, but is also defining a clear framework to actually think about all the dimensions that are important for assessing this technology and how this technology is having an impact on people by considering very simple principle, human right and fundamental freedom and human dignity as a core cornerstone to assess whether this technology is augmenting our capabilities for good or is going to hurt specific community, specific minority. There is a complete chapter on gender. Gender have been historically excluded from many aspects of our society. Before we said that those are algorithms that learn from data, they learn from example. If the example are taken from the past, where specific community, women, have been excluded, then those algorithms are going to give us future opportunity that are reflecting the bias and the discrimination that we have perpetuating in our society for ages. And instead of breaking those patterns, we are going to reinforce those patterns in the future. I like to use a very simple example on my own life. When I was a PhD student, I didn't have the curriculum of those Harvard student or Stanford student. But there was that professor in US that saw potential in me. On paper, I didn't have the right publication yet. I didn't have the right internships yet, but he took a chance on me. He said, I see something in this person. I want to invest in this person. I think she may be a really good PhD student. And therefore, that simple human opportunity of having a person seeing potential in me, not analyzing a CV that wasn't at par with other candidates that he may have had. It gave me the opportunity to actually grow my career in a completely different arena, exposing my experience to a completely different level of opportunities that helped me to grow and to become the scientist and the researcher that I'm today. And therefore, those algorithms that they don't use that human intuition, that only base their prediction based on past and based on what we have done in the past, I would have never been selected. And therefore, my life outcome would have been very different. And that's what we are trying to assess, how dangerous in specific cases those algorithms can be for people to actually undertake a free life where it's driven from their passion, is driven from their capability that possibly still needs to be developed and are not roadblocked by algorithms that are going to say, Ale, you are not good enough. You will never take that position. So ethics is assessing this technology in respect of human right, human freedom, and human dignity.
Thank you so much, Alessandra. Jackie, and obviously Eve, feel free to, if you have a burning need to jump in, do.
Well, there's so much on ethics that we could be discussing, and at its base, it's for the end user, it's transparency. We need to know what the system wants from us, what it's taking, and we have to agree to give it to that system. But I just had some new thoughts based on what Alessandra said, and that that unbiased mentoring that you got to advance your career. Why can't we build an AI that has unbiased mentoring that sees the potential in a person and not based on past? So maybe there's a new area of authoring your knowledge bases that is not based on what's out there now. Can we flip that idea so that we can have new forms of knowledge that are based on equanimity and diversity, and actually I think here's where we have to get the philosophers involved, because we've all heard about some of the ethical dilemmas with AI self-driving cars. Which are you going to kill 2 people or 4 people? Those kinds of ethical dilemmas, and those are going to come up. I think we need to really dig down into the basic architecture and infrastructure of what we're calling AI, because it's new. We're basing it on a particular set of algorithms, a particular kind of machine learning, and it doesn't mean that that's what it's got to be in the future. I don't have the answers, but interestingly enough, the MIT Technology Review Insights magazine yesterday had a interesting analysis of AI, and talked about things like why only 13% of organizations are delivering on their data, but importantly, why open standards are the primary requirement for future data architectures and strategies. So it's not necessarily that we want to have the most knowledge. We want to have the best knowledge for the application. I want that AI mentor, Alessandra.
Well,
It's a lovely challenge indeed. Eve, you go next.
well, I happen to be working on that for the last 3 years. So let me just provide a use case, I guess. You see, I spent 15 years working in corporate world with innovation labs, with innovative businesses, launching IBM Smart, Watson, a supercomputer in the go-to-markets, different markets, or payment screens for autonomous driving cars, name it. But I was always in the seats doing something for someone else who is focused only on money. And I do get it. Commercial return on investment and all this stuff is very important. But if you do it only as a transaction, there is no love, there's no commitment, there is no friendship in terms of long-term business value. And there's no ethics that come to mind, because you don't focus on ethics, biases, inclusion, accessibility when you just simply go with one product. And that's actually an interesting point for investors, because ethical AI in combination with various forms of technology, in my case, it is Metaverse. I believe in the tool, not the hype, but the tool that actually makes it easy for people to learn and socialize and collaborate. That makes a drastic difference, because once you have that ethical combination of AI and whatever product you're building, then you can ensure that people joining and feeling safe, feeling comfortable in the environments. There are no discrimination cases, but they're also, from the commercial point of view, more in activation of their participation. So it's not running and playing games with clicking something to get tokens anymore. It's actually active virtual economy where people can learn, can exchange goods, services, can showcase technology, crowd test the solutions. So for the last 3 years, right before the pandemic hit, I founded Evenness together with other 2 female co-founders. And we've been concerned that sustainability, inclusion, and accessibility are not really visible in the tech world. And that defines the approach forward with climate change, with segregation coming back, with all those society issues. And we make it more harder for people to get access to education. We make it harder for people to be more active in their everyday lives. And that creates imposter syndromes and lack of health and so on and so forth. So when Dr. Jacquelyn spoke about that ethical mentor, what we've been focusing on is creating, we call, it's a non-binary avatar, our AI system called Sage with AI in the center. And Sage is your not only welcoming avatar that says, welcome, this is my metaverse and that's what you do here now. No, it starts with a discussion. So understanding your passions. We believe that getting into technology, inspiring people to learn and to try things starts with their passion, understanding what they are inspired by. And if you say, I don't know tech, and I don't know if I want to become analyst, engineer, and so on, you can get there by saying, my interest is plants, or my interest is space. And then that assistant becomes your coach, mentor, and recommender of all the opportunities that are there, matching learning blocks, getting you to communities or experts that really tailor to your passion. And then out of the blue, you become an expert or in agri-tech or space tech, and you can help humanity to plant and grow food on Earth, and then figure out how to plant it on Mars, which is another big topic to discuss later on. So therefore, understanding the ethical approach and support people, not only providing them with personalized journeys around metaverse spaces, in my case, I am addressing that, or any other digital app, but also to make them understand and be more active in participating, trying things out, and becoming innovators that they always wanted to be. Once you see it, and you can believe it, and you can do it.
You know, it reminds me of the the Diamond Age book and the primer that was there, which had a human behind it. But we're moving close to where if we can unlock some of these ethical challenges, we could have that with your Sage character.
Would love that. And Inner City X is a metaverse we're building. We're actually currently raising our seed round. But if anyone interested, let me know. But with this coming together, we put a big also, focus on who we work with. So NVIDIA was selected as for performance AI and all the compliance process, and then Equinix and all these big companies who actually provide the foundation for us to be able to put that ethical AI not only in our solution, but replicate it across theirs. And that's what I think I'm hacking the industry, trying to influence as many companies as possible, saying, include people, make the technology accessible, not only devices, but for health profiles, and make it exciting. Because once you start learning, you shouldn't be stopping. Continuous process it is.
Alessandra, do jump in. I see you want to ask a question.
Yes, I like to add an argument, which I think is a good follow-up and possibly very core argument for investor in general. So salespeople and marketing guru knows that the relationship and the trust with their client, it's a fundamental driver for business outcomes, as simple as that. So now we know that trust is key for business. Step back. AI is a technology that's going to impact everyone in the world. So customer, it's everyone. How do we initiate a trust relationship between those new technology and product and the end user? I like to make a side consideration. The society we live on. We live in a world where people are losing trust towards organization and towards government and institution. And in a world where you start to lose your reference point and your trusting landmark, then everything can be true or false. And therefore, when you feel subject to possible manipulation and you don't have any more reference point, then it becomes a very unstable society. So in a society where this instability is challenging our very true definition of democracy, then building technology with ethical principle and bringing the trust value front and center to have that discussion with your customer, it becomes not only a good to have, it becomes the only path forward to actually enable return on investment. People needs to be comforted. People needs to be secured in their future transaction, when they will know that those future transaction and digital transaction can be subject to massive manipulation, to massive content manipulation that can result in misinformation, and therefore their ability to choose a technology over another can be very much anchored around the trust principle.
I want to just pick up on your comments on trust, because it reminds me that, you know, so much of these technologies come out of philosophical problems, and for me, blockchain was a response to a lack of trust in society. I want to bring it back to our audience a little bit, because the audience today are investors, they're accredited investors, and I'm going to ask a bit of a contentious question, which is, naturally they're looking to invest in a world-changing company and make a good return. Is there any return on investment from impact-focused initiatives? Number one question. Number two is, what steps can investors take to assess these ethical practices of AI companies that they're considering investing in? And maybe Jackie, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, I think I'd love to hear from the investors, but you know, my basic thing, look at, we've got so many risks and things that will undermine our trust if we don't do this right. So, you know, whether people are worried about having their behavioral and emotional data used for purposes they don't know, there's so many challenges there. But I think every single company should have, and in this arena, should have an ethics advisory board, or at least two people on their board that are focused on that particular issue. And before investors invest in a company, they should ensure that this is an area that is important to that company, because I really believe that the winds are changing and ethical companies are going to be the ones that are going to succeed. If there's a trust thing that is right up front and part of the basic business plan, then I think that company is going to see a lot more activity, a lot more belief in what they're doing, and that return on investment, it may not be measurable now, but I think the ethical companies are going to be the ones that take us into the future.
Thanks, Jackie. Eve, do you want to chime in? You're on mute. Eve, you're on mute.
Thank you. So it's not only the, you know, to join again another hype. Now we're going into ethical AI with ChatGPT showing some risks there, and everyone is start talking about how to do it responsibly. But it's just logical. If you're an investor, what you want to, after your due diligence and market research and understanding the potential of that venture, what you actually want to commit to is that there is a positive impact together with great commercial outcome and a really awesome team that drives it forward, reliable people, and they create the trust among all other communities, their communities, to the technology they're building. So what we see, even as we redefine the way that we hire people, we don't hire, right? That's why I'm doing the quotes, is people start believing in the mission after they understand what we are doing, because every other Web3 Metaverse startup, to justify the investment opportunity for their investors, they go after 1%, whether it's celebrities, whether it's just rich, famous, well-educated, those who easily can show money, spend it on something, and off we go. Great, don't get me wrong, great. But what are you going to do about the other 99%? Once you unlock that pool of users to your solution, then it's a long-term successful startup or technology that have users who come not for 5 minutes or 15 minutes, but they continuously using the technology. So you have a broader market outreach with people believing in the commitment, feeling included. So customer loyalty, client success is there. And businesses want to be associated with that. We have ESG on top of agendas of so many companies, and everyone is going after net zero emissions, zero waste, zero inequalities. Stop doing DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, in terms of quotas. Hey, I got another person of color. Yay, I'm so diverse. No, this is not inclusion. This is just reporting to someone in your diversity reports. What inclusion is that you build from scratch, understanding the people and users and linking them together so they start believing in it. And that's when it comes down to the team that, like, I'm lucky and I'm so proud. My team consists of people of different, identities, backgrounds. Our lead on the Metaverse, who is here, Ned, is an Iranian woman who drives the scene and such a superpower learning by herself and with all the other initiatives. So when you spot the talents, you don't give them job descriptions. You ask them, what's your passion, who you want to become. And then maybe in the future, Sage will help me doing it more efficiently. But at this moment, I just think we should redefine how we do the process. And the former process of finding a venture to invest in is no longer working. It's more dynamic. AI goes so quick. If you miss the opportunity, you miss it. I just letting you know that the time is now. So therefore, spot the talents and startups that actually have impact in their DNA, in their core values, and potential for commercial outcome. It may be not happening yet, but if they're building community and people are happy, that's your golden ticket.
Alessandra, you're the global president of Women in AI. So I know that you'll have lots to say on this matter.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's critical to bring diversity in the making of this technology. As Eve was just mentioning, when you do have a diverse team, you get challenged for every hypothesis or assumption that we make when we develop this technology, and it comes naturally because we think differently. We are different by nature. And therefore, the development journey becomes a very enriching and powerful experience to be a practitioner in this moment. But then on the other side, we need to remember, if we do develop new technology, a new product, those technology and new product needs to return value to the consumer and to those that have invested in that development journey. So I think very importantly, it's what you asked before, Irene, is how an investor or any customer can understand, can see, can test that those products have been developed ethically and responsibly. So today, there are not official standard approved everywhere that we can rely on and say, I need to see your certificate, your label. We'll get there. Regulation is helping. But do we need to wait regulators to do the right thing? We need to question how the data are tested, because we know that we bring bias starting with the data set that we use, how the model are built, and how the outcome of those models are tested. So by just questioning all the aspects of the development of a new technology, you can quickly understand which are the principles that have been used. I want to showcase an example. We know generative technology in the world of Shutterstock is generating images, and there are many providers out there, OpenAI, Stability, everyone have their AI generative images. Some of those have been trained by grabbing everything that was available on internet without having the copyright and the licensing on those images. An artist like Dr. Jacquelyn felt like, why are you using our image? We have never given the right to actually build technology on my image creation and then creating a technology that will replace us. Perfect concern. Shutterstock has taken a different approach, and I'm not saying it's the right thing. I'm just demonstrating the different approach exists if we challenge the system. Using images that come from a pool of contributors that we can acknowledge that they have participated to the process. Building a technology that every time is used to make a transaction rewards back all the contributors that have participated and shared their creation with this technology. So now human and technology become one thing. Creators create their own image, they sell their own image everywhere in the world through our platform, but they also contribute to technology that inspire creativity to people. And every time that technology is used, because they are part of this ecosystem, an integral part of this ecosystem, they get constant rewarding, perpetual rewarding, changing completely the model. So those things are simple to spot. We know the old model. We question what else we can do. How is your new model? And therefore, investor can easily see whether there are innovators that are trying to challenge the status quo and just respect human rights and the dignity of artists everywhere in the world and giving them incentive to continue to do their job.
It's really interesting what you say about copyright from an image perspective. I was reading this morning from the music industry that there is an AI band. Well, the band is fronted by an AI Liam Gallagher, and it's called ASUS. And there's a lot of things coming out in music, which is copying current artists. What companies are getting it right in terms of ensuring that AI systems are profitable and responsible?
I think that's something we really need, is a document that says, what is this company doing, like Shutterstock? What are other companies doing? Because I don't think it's an easy thing for people to go out and find that information. And I almost think we need a council to kind of come up with some kind of manifesto that says, here are the companies doing it with these kinds of things. Let's watch and see how that approach brings more trust, more return on investment. I was thinking, if we find that companies' approaches are doing things right, and first we need the list of companies and what they're doing so we can compare and contrast those approaches. But do you remember when it might be a US thing, but the Good Housekeeping seal of approval for a company that doing all they can to have that ethical aspect to their product, or the Catholic Church's imprimatur for publications that said this meets our seal of approval. Maybe that's something we need, and I don't know if it can come out of the UN. Certainly the UN has a big AI summit going on in July, that AI for Good, that people may want to go visit. I've been to one, and it just changed my thinking on AI totally. From something that was scary to something that could be extremely beneficial. So I would love to see something that puts the approach that you've got at Shutterstock in a list of companies who have different approaches, so that we can follow them over the next couple of years, and also, see if they'll put ethics people on their boards and really address this from an internal standpoint, to build that trust, to make it something that the whole world can feel good about.
Dr. Jacquelyn, I will actually quote you on that as co-chair of the Women for Ethical AI, which is a new platform that UNESCO is launching. We are establishing an observatory of good practices. And I think your idea, if it just define the scope of that observatory, just asking, it's a call for action to everyone in the world to come and tell us what you are doing. And therefore we come together with all our ideas and start to compare and contrast which one of those ideas do work at a principle level, which one of those ideas work in practice and have return of investment. And by tracking through this observatory, I think we can start to provide answer to many of the questions that we all have today. And we are operating in an experimental modality at the moment. We are experimenting new idea, we're experimenting new model, but really we need a systematic way to observe the outcome of those approaches.
I love the word observatory. I love that. I think that's great news that you're starting to work on that.
I strongly believe that like ESG compliance, there should be a ethics compliance that companies have to commit to, and there's certain criteria or points that they need to address, but it should be there. It's not really so yet, but many companies are realizing that they should go into that direction. What we've been building with is the framework of our own that we call ideas. And Metaverse is built on our ideas framework: inclusion, diversity, equity, accessibility, and sustainability, measuring every point to make it as green as possible, to measuring every success factor for people to be truly engaged and interested in what they're doing, how they learn, how they collaborate. Now, I think that something like that, where you measure the ideas in the compliance report, should help us to understand, because PR, media, and all these use cases can speak about these words of ethical AI, responsible AI, but it's not necessarily the case on the behind the curtain. And what we've seen and heard from our two communities, we have responsible innovators for everyone, any age, any gender, to jump on board if they're interested in this ideas approach to technology, and the circle of trust community. For senior leaders, we connect them with vetted Web3 experts to provide the precise knowledge, as we call it. Senior leaders don't have much time to educate themselves, but they need questions answered right away, and being able to find a consultant that is vetted. So in the discussions in the Metaverse spaces and through the app, we aim at enabling them with knowledge to democratize technology so they can democratize it for others or support their communities and their stakeholders. So that approach, creating trust, we addressed that word various times on the call. Trust is highly important and the foundation of human rights, human nature, human potential should be there. And I hope GPT and OpenAI and ChatGPT will implement that as well, because I think that is the leading company at this moment and driving the change forward.
So I know we've said that, we're waiting on regulation, but why should we wait to apply ethical practices, right? But regulation is needed. And the key is to balance the promise of AI with sort of assessments of the risks and to be ready to adapt, right? What are the different approaches that you're seeing? Because obviously different governments have applied light touches. It's different in Britain in comparison to the EU, in comparison to the US. What are you seeing? And sorry, maybe Alessandra, you can.
Irene, if I may actually add something before I pass to Alessandra. There's one thing, regulations, where we need to kind of formalize everything. And another way is to change behavior so people start doing it. So we don't need to have regulations in place because that's already practiced at the mass adoption rate. So therefore, maybe Alessandra can also add to how we can change the behavior so people can do it without reminding them with some regulation in place.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, Eve. It doesn't take a regulator to tell us what the right thing to do is. We know when we hurt someone or we do something that we could improve. And as practitioner, I think we should have those core value in us. And it starts also with bringing ethics and ethics training into our engineering team. I constantly say, I was trained as a computer scientist. I didn't have any ethical training. And therefore, ethical training needs to become our constant learning process, mainly for those that do touch this technology. We need to challenge our thinking, and only if we structure our mind to think ethically, we can challenge our thinking. I think different governments are doing slightly different things, but are fundamentally after the same goal and the same objectives. There are enormous economical implication. No one wants to let their own country or their own nation behind because regulation become too tight and difficult for company to operate in their own geography. It's a very fine line to walk. We want to enable company to strive. We want to give startup a strong ecosystem to innovate and support for them and helping them to actually identify the right path. So I think it's a long discussion. Everyone thinks that regulation will come very quickly. When the regulation will be effective, there will be 2 years to comply with the regulation. So we are thinking about 3 to 5 years ahead of us. Can we wait 3 to 5 years ahead of us, or should we just demonstrate different ways of actually doing it responsibly, just challenge each other for the good, for the better, instead of the usual race to the bottom that we tend to do?
I know,
Well,
Jackie, you have a follow-up on that.
Yeah, it's certainly what you're saying, Alessandra, and I think we all agree on, is that we should base this stuff on our core human values and needs. And that's what's going to make this stuff meaningful and valuable to us as humans. Regulation, okay, regulation is reactionary. It's after the fact. It's usually, oh my gosh, look what happened. Now we got to regulate it. It's not coming up from a place of goodness and true human values. And I think that's where we have an opportunity to make a big difference. Regulation, sure, but regulation, if we could be more predictive about what might need regulation by basing it on these core human values of trust and goodness, I think we'd be way ahead of the game. And maybe we can use AI for that.
I like
Correct.
that.
We see you have reappeared. You're on mute.
I have reappeared, and I wanted to say thank you for everything that you've contributed to. I think you've opened more questions than actually created answers for. So that's wonderful. The questions will continue. In terms of the observatory that Alessandra is doing, that's an amazing stamp approval. I was listening to your good housekeeping analogy there. And then what Eve is doing is actually trying to commercialize ethically business opportunities and functions and formality, which is a practical move forward, observing where AI is coming from. And then Dr. Morie, the larger philosophical questions about equality and humanity, and base this on ethics and who we are as humans. We're opening a lot of things, and not to be morbid, but I think the only time that we'll see the regulators pop in is if we relate AI to money, and that'll happen soon. Who's got control and power over money? And as soon as that happens with AI, the regulations will start to come in. So, and I see that happening pretty quickly. But I do want to say this, but you've opened a lot of questions. In fact, and this is great because our follow-up session, and Gavin, if you could post this on the chat, follow-up session June 15th is by a gentleman called David S. Rose. David S. Rose wrote several best-selling books. He's known in New York as the Archangel. Made a lot of investments in early stage companies. A lot of those have exited. And he continues to do that. He was also a chair. Actually, the most important thing, he was he was a founding chair, a track chair of finance, entrepreneurship, and economics at Singularity University. He's a futurist, and some of the things that we're going to tackle in the 15th is the convergence of supercomputing, the convergence of generative AI, the convergence of space robotics and machine learning and nanotechnology. What is the prediction is in 2045, the convergence will be so rapid that we will probably not know the difference between a computer and a human and computer, and who's doing what, because the convergence will be so close to that. So, I mean, we're going to explore that. You know, timelines do change, but the future is not too far. It happens to be tomorrow. And if we just extend that a little bit, 2045, that's a long, long way away. So hopefully all of you will join us and we can have an interactive conversation with Mr. Rose. We are at time. I want to thank everybody for their contribution, all the attendees. We've had a lot of responses on the polls. So thank you for all of that. Thank you, Irene, for hosting this with us. Eve, Dr. Morie, and Alessandra, thanks for your contributions, knowledge, and sharing your time with us. So we really do appreciate it. Thank you to the team here for helping create this and support this. Dr. Morie, if you would like, we'd like to introduce you to everyone, and you can include them in your new book and vice versa. Dr. Morie has been a long time research director with us at Linqto, and helps us think outside the box a little bit. So the connections of all of you together will be beneficial to everybody.
I've noticed I have quite a number of connections in common with our guests today. So I'm looking forward to further collaboration.
Thank you. So if you would like to close up with some parting words, maybe a sentence or two. If you will think you said you already everything that you wanted to say, that's fine. But if you want to round us out and say bye to everybody, it's entirely up to you. Irene, I'll let you direct that, but I would like to say thank you to everybody for participating today.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation, and I know there's been a ton of questions, so we'll follow up and make sure that you all receive those. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, Alessandra. Thanks, Eve. Thanks, Jackie.
My pleasure. Thank you. Lots of things to think about here.
Oh, yes. We're just starting, you know, with the evolutions slash revolution.
Yeah, let's go invent that future that we want.
Exactly.
You know, as we formally ended this session, but, you know, happy to chat for a few minutes, because it's always, it's such a big thing. So, you know, one of the questions I would dare ask is this actually a wave? I mean, if you were to think through where machine learning and AI started, it was, you know, maybe about 10, 15 years ago when they actually started paying attention to machine learning, and it's taken this long to get here. And it's a significant investment to make into the supercomputers that can actually do this stuff. You know, perhaps a word or two of what you really think, without commitment, the next 10 years will look like. Let's start with Alessandra, perhaps, and see if there's something that you, and I'll just go round once here. 10 years, your most either emotional, positive, negative thought of what AI is going to do to us, for us.
So it's, I come from 9 years at Bell Laboratories, where we were claiming we were doing research 5 to 10 years ahead of the curve. And at the beginning of my journey, it was true. The technology where we were working on, it wasn't coming to market earlier than 5 to 10 years. In the last few years at Shutterstock, we see that we experiment on technology 1 quarter and we launch a live experiment with our customer the next quarter. We have gone through a research life cycle of 5 to 10 years. to few quarters. In a world where technology is evolving so rapidly, and we have been so intelligent to optimize the system, to actually create, innovate, and experiment so fast, there are two main consequences. The ability for us to understand what in the next few years will happen is shrink exponentially, because the amount of changes that we go through, it's exponentially larger. So it's the ability to predict so many different paths that we experiment on, instead of before it was much more of a linear journey, which easier to predict. And then on the other side, also the unintended consequences. However, I'm an optimist by nature, and I think we did invent the atomic bomb, but we didn't destroy humanity yet. And I believe AI has the same potential. And I believe there are so many people like Eve and Dr. Jacquelyn and many other practitioners in the space that are really motivated to do the right thing and to frame this technology in a way that will empower us. And we like to travel from Dublin, where I am, to New York in few hours. With our human capability, we could never do that. And therefore, AI will give our brain that same acceleration of intelligence. Doesn't mean that we will take over, but I truly believe we will become a much more intelligent species.
No, thank you, Dr. Morie.
Wow, I'm not sure I can quite follow that. I do think that idea that we can't predict the future now beyond, you know, what we can see in the near term because of the disruptions that are happening, and that's why I said this inflection point we're at right now with where AI is, where supercomputers are, where data storage is, where the amount of vast information we've never had before at our fingertips. All of those came together so quickly, I would say in the last year, that the landscape completely changed from a pastoral landscape to a very busy city now. and it was so fast. I think it's why we're having this conversation, because when things change that fast, the unintended consequences tend to pile up, and we have to deal with those. And it's really hard to get out in front of it. That's why I think the kinds of things you're doing with the observatory and other things will help us get in front of it. Maybe it's only a few footsteps, but and then maybe the next disruption will come along and we won't know, you know, what we're going to have to change everything again. But this pace of frenetic, you know, change is here to stay with us, and we have to deal with it while keeping our human values at the front.
Thank you, Dr. Morie. Eve, I'm going to change the question, the question a little bit, because of what you're doing and because of the background that you come from, the corporate environment. So in the next fight, you can choose 5 or 10 years, but how will you determine, Eve, that you were successful in your mission of what you want to do? What will have to have been created in the next 5 to 10 years that you will say, you know what, I'm now happy we succeeded in creating what?
In 10 years, because, well, a bit less. I aim at 2030 when we follow up on sustainable development goals, understanding the impact we're creating. So what I'm building right now with my team is strongly focused to contribute to achieving SDGs. So for me, it will be the moment when I feel that I'm successful, when I see more and more people who use the technology that we have built, start sharing broadly that I got my new job, I got recognition, I got knowing that they were career shifters coming from, name it, restaurant business, or they were jumping into technology, or they were never even considering having a chance. and businesses sharing joy in supporting communities and benefiting from crowd testing. Community learn from their technology, and they also make it better for the people by collaborating together. So when you see this dynamic and people start posting everywhere in various channels how happy they are with their life, that the imposter syndrome that they had was actually something that they didn't realize was caused by the system, and Evenness managed to recreate or literally bend the system a little bit or a lot, hopefully a lot, disruption is there, to make those people included and successful in their lives. And I believe in the Patagonia concept that at some moment founders, co-founders should step out, and that's why we have DAO as a governance metric. Though DAO framework, but DAO needs to be cyber secure to its highly extent. Therefore, we're not taking that step yet. But I believe once I'm successful and it's time to give it back to the people so they run the platform that becomes their home, their hub for innovation, that's when you see the technology working forever, because people are part of this co-creation and collaboration.
Yeah.
And everyone learns. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many additional questions, but I've got to let you go, and so we can get on changing the world. But thank you so much, all of you, for your participation. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.